So I'm working on a problem, let's say, and in the process, I program the problem solving before I go to sleep. And if I wind up with a dream during that sleep, so that I wake up and my brain remembers it, and there's, let's say, fear in it. If there's fear in it, I use fear as my teaching tool. And it normally tells me there's something there that I don't think I can accomplish. And if there's something I can't accomplish, I want to know what it is so that I can dig into it. So I will go back into the dream. As I'm fading off to sleep, I'll put myself in that state, the alpha state,
yes.
Where we're just fading off. We're kind of daydreamy a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll put myself into that state, and then I'll recreate the dream as clearly as I can at the point either right at or just before the fear showed up. And I will start the dream again, just like turn on the projector and walk through that. And when I come to the state where I'm going to be in that state where I was afraid, I will have recreated in my mind the script that I want to follow at that point. Let's say, I had one where I was walking across a bridge, and I got to the edge and I looked down and there was land underneath, not, the river was over a ways. And I was afraid and I walked back to this, walked off the bridge. So when I recreated the dream, what I did was I went to the edge of the bridge and I wanted to make sure that I was fearless in that. Well, if it's a dream state, there's nothing to fear. So I jumped off the bridge in my reworking of the dream,
right.
And I allowed myself to fall at whatever rate I was going to fall, and I started regulating it so that I could go up or down, and eventually it took me a week of going to sleep and reworking the dream, but by the end of the week, I could jump off the bridge, allow myself to float down to the ground and step on it lightly, and then fly off and do whatever I wanted to during my dream. But I reworked the dream until I was in charge of the fear.
That is so brilliant. I have to tell you that it just takes my head and spins around a little bit, because there's so much potential here in just that one tool.
Sure.
And I hope that everyone that's listening will do that, because I got a gut feeling on the expansion of just consciousness of choice, to take fear and put it over to the side, become fearless, and get those creative juices going. The idea that you could come off the bridge
mm-hmm.
and choose how fast you were going to, or slow it down, speed it up. In other words, all the choices you want to improve a situation. And it takes the fear, or whatever the symbolic meaning of the dream, throws it completely out the window, and now it's distributed in a whole new way. And I think the body feels that.
Sure.
So it's a training of something visual. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It has many levels to it.
Sure.
But that's brilliant. I love that.
Well, that's my attitude on almost all reactive emotions, is that they're tools for us to learn from, because they're there to teach us. They're decisions that we've made in the first probably 5 or 6 years of our life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reactive. We get triggers, we react, and our process for having those emotions is to have them show up and then redecide what we're going to do with those triggers.
Exactly.
And when we redecide what we're going to do with the triggers, then they teach us how to be better humans. They teach us how to make better decisions.
Well, I wanted to ask you your opinion of why intuition is a crucial skill to develop if you own a business.
Sure. A couple of my favorite authors. So one of my heroes is Jack Welch, who was the CEO of GE. And one of the authors that I appreciate quite a bit is Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great. And both of them feel that if you're going to be a great CEO, a great leader, you can't do that unless you are more intuitive than you are analytical.
Mm-hmm.
If you're intuitive, that allows you to you never have all the information you want as a business owner or a CEO. You never. And so you've got to take limited, reduced information and come up with high-level quality decisions. And the only way to do that is to have intuition as a regular tool, which is for those CEOs who are open to that, for those executives who are open to growing their intuitive skills. First, become aware of it when they use it. You know, when is it that a gut feel guides you to an appropriate decision? You know, and you have to be aware of when you're allowing that in and when you're not, and just force yourself to just slow down a little bit and let the solutions bubble up. Because our subconscious is the interplay or the gift that we have that feeds up into the intuitive mind, and then from the intuitive mind into the analytical mind. And most CEOs run their lives in the analytical mind, and if they're really courageous, they are intuitive also, and they give a place for that creativity to show up on a regular basis.
Did you ever hear the story about Walt Disney? He was an incredible intuitive.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, maybe you'd like to tell the story.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, the little that I know about Walt was that he had an office for each project. And so he'd spend so much time and the decoration of the room. So he didn't have one office. He had all kinds of offices, maybe 7 or 8 offices. So if he was working on a cartoon project or a different movie or whatever, he would move himself around during the day to these different offices. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Also, I think that we're brought up in a culture that basically it's okay to have a gut feeling, but it's not okay to be intuitive and God help you if you're psychic, you know, in our culture. And I think that what people don't seem to realize is that it's a part of the equipment. As a human being, we come into the world with a sensory system and that everybody's got it. But if you stay conditioned and cultured in your left brain, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can be open to find that you have a right brain function that could be very highly functional in an intuitive process if you lent yourself into another way of thinking about it. So I would imagine for you I just had this picture of you screwing in a light bulb. Yeah, I just love that. Because that would be what it would be like for some people who's working with you, and the profound way in which you speak, it's like screwing in a light bulb and all of a sudden there's light. It's like, oh.
Where'd that come from?
Where did that come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like right now, having this intuitive moment with watching the light bulb turn on, you know. So I think that it's got to be an exciting adventure for you. With each new personality,
Yeah.
you probably can sense how to guide them just from how they communicate with you, their body language, in general, an intuitive feeling about how to approach them.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do with someone who is extremely interested in your work, but you can see that they're sort of dug in a little bit? In other words, they're afraid of their own intuitive process.
Sure.
What do you do with them?
Well, pretty much with everything. Everything. Executives and strong-willed people are very definite in their own internal self-relationship,
Yeah.
which is appropriate. They've got a lot of stuff to do in leading, right? They've got to be strong in that.
Exactly.
They don't have to have all the answers, though, but they have their own motivation. So what I do is I start with questions, and I ask them what's important to them. You know, I have 2 questions I start with. What are the 3 things you want the most that you don't have? That gives me their level of ambition, their level of drive, how well integrated they are, how well they've envisioned that, and how well.
That's a lot.
Right, and tells me more, but you know.
That tells you. I remember one time you asked me a question, and I just felt like somebody slapped me upside the head, and I sat there, and it was like I couldn't exactly quite get to it because it was so direct, and I myself had not thought about the question that you had asked. And I would imagine that you have a lot of experiences with that to get to their heart, to ask them what would make you happy, what would give you joy, what would give you this great adventure in your leadership.